Luigi Mangioni's name and reputation precedes himself. He's facing multiple federal and state charges in New York, as well as state charges in Pennsylvania over his alleged involvement in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare's CEO, Brian Thompson, on the night of 4th December 2024. Now, even though the shooter fled the scene, he left behind DNA evidence in a nearby trash can because he discarded a water bottle and snack wrapper which matched his fingerprints, and most importantly, the shell casings at the scene of the crime, which were inscribed "Delay, Deny, Depose," matched the 9mm firearm that was later discovered. Luigi Mangioni was purported to set an example and to form an image in the public psyche that he was a dangerous man to support the terror-related charges he was facing. However, the New York State Supreme Court dismissed the terror-related charges, citing that the charges were legally insufficient and did not prove intent. The New York State Supreme Court dismissed the terror-related charges on 16th September 2025, citing that the people did not prove that the alleged murder that was committed was intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population. The court found that even though the employees of the United Healthcare expressed fear, the court found that there was no evidence that Luigi intended to intimidate a civilian population. Secondly, the people did not prove that Luigi intended to influence policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. Or thirdly, affect the conduct of a unit of government by committing the alleged murder. The court found that Luigi's statements on the need for change, considering the problems in the healthcare industry, were not to influence a government policy, but mere expressions of anger. They also found that Luigi made no demand to the government to effect a government policy change. And after the dismissal of the terror-related charges, this wouldn't be the last time that the court would uphold a fair trial for Luigi Mangioni. Just recently, the New York court suppressed key evidence against Luigi Mangioni, which related to his arrest at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where an employee alerted the police after recognizing him, as his face was all over the news for the alleged murder of the United Healthcare CEO. When the police arrived, Luigi was wearing a mask. They engaged him at around 9:29 a.m. and they asked Luigi to remove his mask. The police also asked him his name, to which he responded, Mark Rosario. He was also asked to provide an ID. He provided a New York Jersey driver's license that read the name Mark Rosario. One of the officers left the car to verify the ID, and later it was discovered that he had given the police a fake ID. The officer called for backup, and this time they surrounded Luigi Mangioni. One of the officers gave him a warning for providing a false ID, and that's when Luigi provided his actual name and date of birth. At 9:48 a.m., one of the officers read Luigi the Miranda rights and asked him if he wished to speak to the police. He declined and was informed that he was not in custody. He was then ordered to stand and was frisked, which revealed that he had a pocket knife. 10 minutes later, he was under arrest. When they searched him, they found cash, gloves, some notes that were on a paper, and a hat. They then went through his backpack on grounds that they were searching for a bomb. They didn't find a bomb, but found a cell phone, a passport, a wallet, a computer microchip, a gun magazine, and a red notebook, which allegedly contained his manifesto. But as damning as this evidence is, it will be challenged, and the court would find in favor of Luigi's lawyers. The police drove Luigi to the station and conducted an inventory search of Luigi's property, where they found a 3D printed gun believed to be the murder weapon, a silencer, and a USB drive. The police took photographs of all the evidence. Then later in the day, they applied for a search warrant. And here's where the legal nightmare of the prosecutors began. This is because Luigi Mangioni's lawyers will file a motion to seek to suppress evidence that was obtained without a search warrant. The court found that there was no reason to justify the warrantless search. The people or the prosecutors could not prove that the warrantless search was conducted out of safety of the public, the arresting officer, or for the protection of evidence from destruction and or concealment. The court suppressed evidence that was found at the McDonald's, which included the magazine, a cell phone, passport, wallet, and computer chip, except the red notebook because the officers did not open it. However, the court found that the evidence which was discovered during the inventory search at the station would not be suppressed because the police complied with the procedures and were taking the inventory search for the protection of the property of Luigi, who was in custody when they discovered the evidence. The evidence included the 3D printer gun, the silencer, USB drive, and the red notebook. The court also held that statements Luigi gave to the police before he was placed in custody are admissible. However, statements he made after being held in custody, such as why he lied about his name or his response when asked why he provided a fake ID, were all to be suppressed and will not be used against him in court. Luigi Mangione is currently held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, whilst he no longer faces the terror-related charges for which, if convicted, he would face the death penalty. He still faces a murder trial in New York that will begin on September 8th. And just over a month later, on October 13th, he will begin his federal trial where he faces 2 counts of stalking, 1 count of murder through the use of a firearm, and 1 count of a firearm offense. And just this week, Luigi Mangione's lawyers have just taken a tangent on their defense strategy because their lawyers had earlier issued a notice that the defense intended to rely on a psychiatric defense. On Wednesday this week, the defense claimed that Luigi was suffering from an extreme emotional disturbance at the time of the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson on 4th December 2024. The court had issued Luigi's lawyers with a deadline on Thursday to provide prosecutors with information and evidence to support or prove Luigi's emotional disturbance claims. Soon after, Luigi Mangione's lawyers served a letter to the judge notifying the court that the defense would respectfully withdraw its notice under the New York Psychiatric Defense Statute, meaning that they will not rely on the extreme emotional disturbance defense. The move to withdraw the extreme emotional disturbance defense was well calculated because whilst such a defense is a mitigating factor and will not absolve him of any criminal conviction, he could no longer be convicted of murder, only manslaughter, which would potentially reduce his sentence from life imprisonment to serving only 25 years in prison. On the other hand, relying on the extreme emotional disturbance as a defense would be a damning admission that would hurt his federal case, to which such a defense would not be applicable and would only serve as an admission that would be used by the prosecutors against him in court.